Howdy readers and howdy film buffs. My name is Jason. This is Chapter and Verse, and this is the latest video in my series on mortality in literature and film. The series is called You Carry a Coffin Today. And most months this year we have been reading a book that deals with death, novels and nonfiction, sometimes poetry, and watching a film that deals with death. And this month in September, we are doing just a film. Next month, we'll be doing just a film. And then in November and December, we will return to doing a book a month and a film a month. So this month's movie is the first in Krzysztof Kieslowski's Three Colors trilogy. The first film is Bleu, starring Juliette Binoche. And this trilogy of films, here it is right there. And this trilogy of films was made as a kind of cinematic meditation on the colors of the French flag and what those colors represent. Blue representing liberty or freedom, white representing equality, and red representing fraternity or brotherhood. So why did I choose Three Colors Blue for a series on mortality, a series on death? So the movie opens with a car accident. And in that car accident, a famous composer dies, and his daughter dies. So the wife survives, played by Juliette Binoche. The composer was working on, at the time of the car accident, had been working on a piece of music for what was going to be a concert for the unification of Europe. If I remember right, 12 different orchestras in 12 different cities across Europe were going to be playing this music at the same time. The point of my including it in this project is looking at how the character of Julie copes with grief, or fails to cope with grieving the loss of her husband and her daughter, and how that overlaps or chimes with the theme of the film, based on the color blue and the French flag, freedom or liberty. So how does Julie achieve this, right? How does she achieve freedom? How does she achieve healing in this grieving process? Because it's not an easy thing for her. There is a kind of chill that is brought out in her when she returns home. At one point, she finds their maid, I think it is, or maybe it's their cook, crying, and she asks her, "Why are you crying?" And the maid says, "Because you aren't." And it's a strange scene. It's a moving scene, and it's a complicated scene. It forces us to ask ourselves, why is Julie's grief taking this kind of cool, distant form? And she comes to the conclusion that she can only heal, that she can only find freedom again in isolation. There's a scene about halfway through the movie where she visits her mother in the nursing home, and she tells her mother no friendships, no love, that these things are traps, right? That if we have connections with other people, that we run the risk of losing those people and putting ourselves in the position of grieving all over again. So this is how she's going to do it, right? She is going to cut all ties with everyone in her life and just withdraw. And so she finds a flat that is perfect for her needs, and she has enough money that she doesn't have to work, and she can just live off of the money, the interest from the money. It's a perfect situation for her, or it would seem to be. So in that scene where she's speaking to her mother about cutting all ties with people, her mother is watching people bungee jumping on television. And it didn't occur to me until just a little bit ago when I was working on my notes for this video that bungee jumping is a kind of metaphor for what Julie is attempting. And the thing is, the risk is illusory, right? You're always tethered. You bungee jump and you rebound, you bounce back. So no matter how hard you try to remove yourself from the lives of other people and to remove them from your own life, you are going to be tethered to them. There's just no getting around it. Other people, friendships, love will intrude on your existence. That's just the case. And there are a whole series of those intrusions in the film, right? So there's a lover that she takes after the death of her husband, another composer who had been working with her husband. And they sleep together one night, and she tells him, "You won't miss me. Like, you know, I'm just a normal person now. I have cavities like everyone else." And essentially she's trying to crush this kind of ideal vision that he might have of her. And she leaves him. But she can't help the fact that he pursues her. It takes him a while to find her, but he does. He finds her in a coffee shop. He intrudes on her attempt to create this kind of hermetically sealed bubble around her, this existence that is impermeable. Another intrusion on her solitude is this clamor in a fight in the street outside that wakes her in the night. And she's watching it from the window, and she watches the guy who is being beaten up elude his pursuers and dash into her building. And she hears him running up the stairs and pounding on every single door, trying to find someone to help him. And eventually he pounds on her door, and she just listens, right? And then she hears the guys catching up with him right on the other side of her door, which is actually something that happened to me when I was in college. I still remember this. My brother and I were watching Last of the Mohicans, and we heard a fight break out in the hallway in the apartment building right outside our door, and somebody got thrown up against our door, and I remember watching the door just shudder in its frame. But that's another instance, right? This fight outside, literally coming into her building and standing at the threshold of her personal space. The neighbor who comes to her apartment looking for her signature to evict the prostitute from their building. The prostitute herself who comes to thank her for not signing the petition, and essentially just invites herself in, right? And puts her hands on this kind of glass bead, this blue glass bead lamp that Julie has, which itself is a kind of intrusion, right? When she first returns home after she gets out of the hospital, she starts to rip the lamp apart, tears the beads down. And then she keeps them in her pocket for some time. And then she presumably reconstructs what she had destroyed in the lamp, and she keeps it with her. This reminder of what her life had been. Maybe the most powerful intrusion into her solitude in the film occurs when we see her swimming. Okay, there are all of these beautiful scenes in the film where she's swimming alone in this blue pool. And there's one scene where the prostitute who has become her friend comes to see her at the pool, follows her there. And when the prostitute leaves, there's this rush of children that just come pouring out of the locker room, and all these little kids with their bathing suits on and their little swimming hats, and they just run screaming past her and jump into this pool that has been a kind of womb for her, really. And she can't help but be reminded of her daughter with the intrusion of all of these gleeful children. And it's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly sad. And maybe the most noteworthy intrusions in the film into her solitude, things that she can't escape at all, are these moments when the music that either her husband had been writing or she had been writing with his name on it, when the music for this concert for the unification of Europe just explodes in her mind, in her ears, in her senses. And it's quite powerful when it happens. And she doesn't ever seem to know when it's going to happen. She'll be swimming, or she'll be having a conversation with someone, and something will jog a memory. We don't know what memory it is, but then all of a sudden there'll be this swell of choral music, And it's incredibly powerful. It's just incredibly powerful. So what I took from the film, rewatching it again for this project after all these years, hadn't seen it in probably 18 years or something like that, is this idea that healing doesn't come from escape, all right? It doesn't come from isolation, but it can come from accepting the intrusions of love, of friendship, of joy. If we can accept those things in the midst of our grief, if we can accept them incrementally, if we can accept them mindfully, then healing can come from that, I think. And the film seems to believe that as well. Here's a movie in which a husband and a daughter have been torn from this woman. Death tears us from our loved ones. It tears our loved ones from us. And the idea that the film left me with is that grieving can and should maybe lead us to unification with others, to community. And I love the fact that when we finally hear at the end of the film this piece of music composed for the unification of Europe, what do we see? What images do we see behind the notes? We see all of these disparate characters from the film, one and then the next and then the next and then the next. And Kieslowski seems to be saying that that the point, in the end, the point of what we're doing in this life, with our lives, should be unification, should be camaraderie, kindness, community. And I love the fact that he gives us this montage of the faces of these characters, some of whom have been really important in the film, some of whom have essentially been walk-ons, significant walk-ons, but walk-ons nonetheless. And we have this gorgeous music behind them that is meant to celebrate people coming together, finally. So that's it. That's what I'll leave you with there. If you watched the film with me, if you watched Kieslowski's Bleu, please let me know what you thought in the comments below. I'm just dying to know, really. No pun intended. And next month, we are going to be watching Adrian Lyne's horror film, Jacob's Ladder. This is a movie that is probably my favorite horror film. My friend Dan and I, Dan with whom I smoked the toad, we'll be watching this near the end of October, right around Halloween. So my video on this will be up about 4 weeks from now. So look for it. It's devastating. It is creepy. It is infuriating. It is heartrending, really. So I hope some of you will join me for Jacob's Ladder. I hope your work week has gotten off to a nice start, and I will see you guys again very soon. Adios.